Another feeling I've been feeling a lot of recently is admiration for my dad, Peter Holmes. Um, and through the last week, I've been reminded of a lot of ways that other people have admired him. And much of my associations with God the Father has come through my experiences of my earthly dad. So I'm eternally grateful to him for teaching me about God and how it's brought me closer to God. And I understand that for many people, their experiences with their earthly fathers might not be so positive. And my heart goes out to you. All I can do is try to articulate the attributes of God that Peter emanated to help with the understanding of the character of God the Father. And what I'll do is I'll go through each of the attributes that I believe God has and that my father emanated with examples, which will help to sort of explain. So patience was the first one I wrote down. We see patience in the Bible from 2 Peter 3 verse 9, which is about God's view of time and waiting for people to turn to him. Numbers 14 verse 18 is about God being slow to anger and abounding in love. My dad was very patient. He had a vision for the refurbishment of the church. He had an idea of what it should be, and it took years and years and years and years of his patience with the congregation to see that come to fruition and the church used effectively. The second attribute is being able to take on burdens. Matthew 11 verse 28 and Psalm 55 verse 22 speaks about how ultimately God has the whole universe under his control, so he can do anything. My dad dealt with maintenance of the church for 27 years and set up a homeless shelter, which wasn't without its issues. And he, of course, listened to people and helped where he could. Thirdly, openness to people. Luke 15 verse 2 is an example of how Jesus continually associated with the dejected and the outcasts of society, like sinners and tax collectors. Also in Romans 15 verse 7. And my dad, associated with the homeless and with just about anyone and everyone who came through the doors. And so most Sunday dinners for me and every Christmas Day dinner, there were people present who weren't in our immediate family. It was a welcoming place where Peter accepted people without judgment, and people came and went, and it was very inclusive, and it helped me learn. Thirdly, love. We only need to go to John 3:16 for that. Also John 15 verse 13. And of course, my dad showed his love by his actions. He was prepared to do long journeys to help me with my belongings. He put in the graft and the upkeep of the house. He spent time face to face, playing a game with us when he'd rather be watching football. The next attribute of God is being able to see the bigger picture. Romans 8 verse 27 to 28 tells us about how God knows us inside out and works for our good. Growing up with my dad meant seeing the bigger picture was a bit of discipline and a lot of encouragement. He saw the bigger picture and was visionary when it came to the setting up of his church work, the homeless shelter, being a landlord, his youth charity. But his ability to see the bigger picture was apparent most when I had a crisis of faith, and his face was frustratingly unshakable. And one more word that I initially wrote down was loyal. But then when I thought about it some more, I realised that my dad wasn't really loyal in some senses of the word, because he didn't have a strong allegiance to anyone, but had a strong allegiance to everyone. He didn't really take sides, but he upheld what is good. He was loyal in the respect that he kept his promises, like coming to school performances and picking me up when he said he was going to pick me up. But that loyalty extended to everyone. And God's example of loyalty is in Deuteronomy 7 verse 9. We see through the Old Testament God being loyal to his people, the Jews. He makes promises to them and he keeps them. And I hope that sort of these attributes have helps to give a little bit of a clearer understanding of the character of God in some way.